The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in just about 30 seconds. We're going to let some people join in a moment. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the webinar, How to Segment Your Customers to Maximize Revenue. I'm Daniela Stemberg, and in my role here at Handshake, I'm constantly talking to manufacturers and wholesale distributors about the topics that we're covering today. Our mission at Handshake is to make it as easy as possible to get every product to every shelf in every business. We are a B2B commerce platform for manufacturers and distributors that really makes it easy for both sales reps and customers to order from those companies. So this webinar topic is very close to home for us. Early on, when manufacturers and distributors were first adopting sales and ordering software, a lot of suppliers were really focused on optimizing their full service channel with mobile technology for their sales reps. And that was really before B2B e-commerce had really taken off. So now that online ordering is kind of becoming table stakes, the conversation has shifted to be a lot more about how do you get the most out of your full service sales reps and your self-service online or mobile channels. And you really can only do this right if you've done a really good customer segmentation exercise on the front end. We've got a lot of things to cover today, so let's get started. Okay, so in terms of today's agenda, first we're going to set some context and just give a little bit more definition to the channels manufacturers and distributors are selling into today. Next, we're going to get into some data around why omni-channel is so important. Then we're going to cover what types of transactions are really best suited for each of those channels, like your in-person full service channel, and what's really best done through a self-service channel. And then in that section, we're going to talk about what types of technology people are using for each channel. And after this, we're going to get into the meat of the webinar, how to segment your customers, and the very specific sales tactics for each customer group that you should identify. And after all of that, we're going to get into your questions. On that note, as we're going through the webinar, please use the GoToMeeting question box to input your questions while I'm talking, and we'll get to them in the Q&A portion. That will get that section to move a little bit faster. So going to market. To set some context, we need to really define how manufacturers and distributors are currently going to market and set some terminology for the rest of the webinar. To be honest, there's a lot of things still shaking out in terms of the way this space is being described. People use terms like, quote, omni-channel and quote, online in different ways. So I want to make sure we are being clear about how we talk about them today. And then the three go-to-market approaches that we are talking about are, first, the full service channel. This is the sales rep driven channel where your reps are interacting with and selling to your customers in person. Next is the self-service channel. This is customer driven ordering. And while previously this happened mainly via phone, fax, yes, that's true, and still out there, and email for a lot of companies, this is really moving towards online, and growth is really increasing in the self-service channel. And then finally, there's the omni-channel approach, which is a hybrid of both a full service and a self-service approach. Historically, the hybrid model has been in place with technologies like EDI. In this scenario, the sales rep works with the buyer to plan the orders and then get everything set up in the procurement systems. And then the actual orders are issued by the procurement system over EDI. So the sales rep and the customer driven ordering are kind of in that transaction. The challenge with that, though, is that EDI itself is very difficult to set up and maintain, and really only the biggest retailers or your biggest customers will likely use it. So until more recently, this hybrid model has been kind of out of reach for some of your mid-size or smaller customers. And now the birth of B2B e-commerce is making this hybrid approach that really has only been restricted to EDI or for your largest customers is now possible for your entire customer base. So today's most comprehensive omni-channel implementations include both a really strong sales channel in person and online customer ordering on both web and on mobile. And we're going to get into what that looks like in a little bit. So over the next couple of slides, we're going to get into some really interesting statistics on why omnichannel is so important in B2B. And some of you have maybe already read some of these or seen them in other things that you're reading, but a lot of this data is coming out of the October 2016 Forrester report called The Case for Omnichannel B2B. And for any of you who can get your hands on the report, it's really interesting, but we're going to be covering a lot of the highlights today. So according to the report I just mentioned, omni-channel B2B buyers are more active, they generate more revenue, and they cost less to serve than your single channel customers. So let's break this down a little bit. Omni-channel customers are more valuable. So one of the first stats here is that 51% of B2B digital professionals, people like you, say that omni-channel customers have increased spending with them over the last year. The next stat is about migrated customers. Migrate is really a term that buyers have been starting to place orders online as well as the self-service channel. And the report really states that these migrated customers who have been buying in person for years are actually now spending more money in person than when they did before they went and started ordering online too. And I talked to so many manufacturers and distributors every single day that tell me about their fear that online ordering is going to cannibalize their in-person sales or their sales rep channel. And I always tell them the stats and the trajectory shows the opposite, that once your buyers go and migrate to the web, they wind up spending more money in person when your sales reps than they ever did previously. And finally, a lot of B2B executives agree with the statement that customers that you have migrated to self-serve product purchase environments generally spend more money in total after they migrate online. But what's interesting is that it's by a factor of 4 to 1. So that's really exciting. So next is increased product discoverability. So we see a lot of this additional value in the omni-channel customer being really driven by the introduction of the self-service channel, specifically the product discoverability that results from it. So actually, according to a survey that we ran last summer, 50% of the respondents who had online ordering in place noticed that their buyers were discovering new products, and they were ordering in new product categories that they'd never bought in before. And what's really interesting is that 34% saw an increase in average order value from B2B e-commerce. So that's increased product discoverability. So let's talk about the cost saving side. A lot of really great data here from the Forrester report as well. One of the first stats is that 52% of respondents say that migrating offline-only customers to online has reduced their support costs. And another 56% report that they have customers that they can really only profitably serve online. And we're going to get into a couple of really interesting examples that we've seen in our business and our customers at Handshake towards the end of the webinar. And the last stat here is that 72% of B2B companies are actively focusing their sales teams on just more higher end selling scenarios rather than focusing on reorders. We hear this one all the time, really common in the food and beverage space, really common in other industries that we work with where the reorder volume is so high that we've seen that shift that a lot of companies are trying to make with their sales teams. So there's this really great quote that came out of the report that describes the kind of spirit behind omnichannel. It's really all about giving your customers options. A pure self-serve website for the times that they want to do that, a salesperson that's in between full service experience, and then kind of offering a hybrid selling model. And I have to say, I was pretty excited when I read this quote, given kind of how aligned it is with what Handshake is doing and how we're helping manufacturers and distributors sell and have their go-to-market strategy. So those stats were great, but let's get into some more details. And it's the case that there are particular types of transactions that are more typically done with a sales rep, or more types of transactions that are typically done online. So in this section, we're going to talk about the technology that suppliers are using to support this omni-channel approach. So on the full service side, none of this should really come as any surprise, but really the transactions that are coming out of this approach are really much more complex, higher ticket items. There might be quite a bit of negotiation or product education required. And so a lot of these orders wind up getting submitted in a pretty analog way: phone, fax, pen and paper, and the primary way that they get submitted is that it's facilitated by the salesperson. One thing I hear increasingly from my customers that I talk to is that text message is coming into the sales rep, and then the sales rep is using phone, fax, or email to then submit that order. So a lot of the transactions here are part of a little bit of a longer sales cycle, maybe more of a relationship-based business. And generally, a full service approach like this is often used when getting a first time purchase or one that requires substantial research. Okay, so the next is self-service, on the other hand, which is generally for transactions that can be typically easily researched and relatively inexpensive. So that's why we see reordering as a really great fit for this channel, because they already know what they need to buy. And these transactions generally occur over a shorter sales cycle that's pretty transactional. And a lot of the time we're seeing this more and more with our customers. It's just, again, about those replenishment orders. So knowing now about both full service and self-service transactions, let's talk a little bit about what technologies really support this holistic omni-channel approach. On the full service side, suppliers are using mobile ordering apps like Handshake for their sales reps to really take care of the transactional element of the sale. There's also CPQ, or configure price quote software. This is really common in industries where pricing is dynamic and the products that are being sold require a lot of configuration, CAD drawings, that kind of thing. And then the other type of technology is field data collection and analysis software like a Go Spot Check or Zenput that really allow you to do things like merchandising surveys, program compliance checks, etc. So that's on the full service side. On the self-service side, this transaction is really being supported through B2B e-commerce portals like Handshake. Some suppliers have e-commerce on the web only, but many are starting to provide ordering on mobile as well. And outside of the pure ordering itself, it's really important to consider the engagement technologies that can make the online channel more effective, like online chat, email marketing, in-app messaging. These engagement technologies can really help you drive more demand, create tighter communication with your customers. And if you use it in conjunction with your order history data, you can really create a much more personalized experience. You can think about the experiences that you have with the brands and the companies that you interact with and that you buy with, and the things that they make available to you when you're ordering online from them. You want to be able to replicate that for your B2B customers and your business as well. So, Finally, let's talk about the B2B commerce platform. Like we just talked about, the omnichannel experience is one that's powered by technology, especially the customer ordering side of that. So, understanding what makes up a powerful omnichannel B2B commerce platform is really the foundation for the rest of the webinar and will help inform how you're going to roll out the technology that's required for the specific customer segments that you have in your business. So we're going to cover that now before we get into those sales strategies. So at the very core of a omni-channel selling strategy is the transaction itself. That means that the foundational technology of an omni-channel platform is one that supports the actual commerce, whether that's on the full service or the self-service side. And you can see here that the really key solutions that make up this platform are a mobile order writing application that reps use in the field, allowing them to access your product catalog, customer specific pricing, promotions, product assortments, and really important information like inventory levels and order history, and really anything else that's going to help them place the order, place the right order, and do it quickly in front of the customer. And more importantly, when they're doing that through technology, that actual order then gets sent back into your office for fulfillment at a much faster rate. And then the other key part of this platform includes a B2B commerce platform on the web and mobile so that your customers can place self-serve orders whenever and however they want. So in a B2B commerce platform, the order data that these three solutions have really should sync across your web order management solution. And in turn, that is what syncs into your business's ERP. And the platform itself also has to be customizable. So you have to have the ability to really integrate best-in-class engagement technologies that we just talked about, things like email marketing, chat widgets, really hinders on your ability to really connect those technologies to your platform. And it's really important that your vendor has an open API. So can you even plug other stuff into your commerce platform? And if you can't, it's going to be really difficult for you to leverage this other stuff as you go down the journey of customer segmentation and improving your revenues and reducing your costs through these full service and self-service channels. So customization is not really only about adding on other technologies through things like APIs. It's really about your platform's flexibility around accommodating how your selling rules are evolving in your business on a rolling, ongoing basis. And so a platform that really uses this approach comprehensively will be able to future-proof your business. You're not going to be stuck by stagnant technology. You're going to be able to customize it. And for example, if you introduce a new promotional strategy next year, for example, the platform you have in place today needs to be able to help you support where you want to go. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to need to re-platform all of these components just to be able to get you to where you want to go. And distributors just do not have that, and manufacturers don't have that luxury of time anymore. You need to do it at scale quickly across all of your channels. So hopefully that's really helpful background on the technology underlying this itself. This is something I have a lot of expertise on. I spend almost all day, every day talking about it with the customers that I work with. So feel free to use that GoToWebinar question box right here if you have any specific questions that I can get to at the end for your business, or if you want me or one of my colleagues to reach out to you directly and talk in more depth about how we can help you afterwards. So on to the next section. This is the reason why a lot of you are here. It's the part that I'm the most excited about to talk to you today. And so let's get into it. So manufacturers and distributors have a really diverse customer base, and how you decide to balance the full service and self-service experience really depends on the way that you segment your customers. And a really sophisticated omni-channel strategy, it's got to be customer specific. So we're going to be using a framework from the Forrester report called 5 Keys to Effective B2B E-commerce. And it really divides customers into 4 quadrants based on both the amount and the frequency of their spending. So What you'll see here on the left is the frequency axis. So up and above, you'll see the spending axis. So first up in this framework are your key accounts. These are the accounts that have the highest average order value, and they order at the highest frequency. They're obviously super, super important to your business. Next are the value accounts. These are the ones that order pretty often, but generally have a lower average order value than those key accounts. Then there's the cyclical accounts. We see people who are in highly seasonal industries like fashion or sporting goods really have a lot of cyclical buyers, and these accounts spend a lot, but less frequently. And then finally, we have dormant accounts. These guys really don't spend that much, order least, or really have dropped off from ordering in the last few years, months, and so forth. So how can you perhaps reactivate those customers? So what you're going to need to do with this framework then is segment your specific customer base with these quadrants in mind, and it's really going to inform your go-to-market strategy around each of them. Okay. So the next section of the webinar is going to be about the specific tactics for each of the customer segments that we just identified. And before I go on, there's something really important that we should touch on, and that's profitability. I know that you care about that. We all care about that. It's the thing that really makes this all work. So while the framework that I just laid out is really going to get you a lot of the way there, the truth is, without really understanding the profitability in your own business of how you serve those accounts, you really aren't going to be able to accurately analyze your customer landscape. So taking a step back, let's imagine, for example, I sell toasters. For the sake of simplicity, let's say that I sell them for $1 each. So a few of what would be considered my key accounts buy 100 times more toasters than anybody else, but given their volume, they have negotiated a price of, let's say, 85 cents per toaster. Doesn't sound too crazy. It's probably really similar to what a lot of you do in your own business. But what if I told you that my cost on each toaster was 84 cents? That totally changes things, because I might want to reduce my willingness to continue to throw more service cost at this account, given my already razor thin margins. So I would really then have to think about ways to improve my profitability. And that's either reduce my cost to serve on these customers, try and find more margin in that gap, or really try and increase their average order value with cross-sell or upsell strategies for things that they may not buy from you today, they buy from another competitor, or maybe they had no idea that you even offered. So this toaster example is really meant to illustrate that while this framework is going to be able to help you audit and really segment your buyers, you really have to factor in profitability across your customer base to develop that omni-channel strategy that's really going to drive results for your business. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to tell a story about one of the customers that I work with that ran this kind of analysis and actually found out what their profit margin was on those orders and how they used a customer segmentation strategy to improve their profitability. So there's really an implicit bias in the way that we've laid this out, in that, the key accounts sounds like the best, but once you factor in the profit where the profit in your business is coming from, maybe it's from your value or your cyclical accounts, this is going to change some of those things for you. So, okay. Now that we've identified the actual segments, let's talk about each of these segments in detail, and then the sales tactics for each of them. All right, so let's start with the key accounts. These, like we mentioned, are the most important ones that are placing really large orders really, really frequently. And so it should come as no surprise that these buyers need both the full service and the self-service channels in place. According to the Forrester report that introduced these quadrants, the whole point of a key account strategy is really to delight with service and reward with customer loyalty. So what does that really mean? It means that the full omni-channel ordering suite, you have your buyers order from reps, you have them order online from web or mobile. That's the full omni-channel ordering suite. So It's really not enough to treat all of these key accounts equally. You know that you need to kind of meet their own individual preferences. And so maybe one of those key accounts wants to order only through reps and refuses to do anything self-serve. But maybe one of those key accounts wants to do everything themselves and don't really want to talk to a rep until they actually need advice or they need support or something. So you really need to factor this in to really extract as much value as possible from these key buyers that are already your most loyal customers. So because a lot of key accounts are often served in person, you need to make sure that the reps meet with them, and when they meet with them, they're using really great mobile ordering applications. So giving the reps real-time access to things like inventory data and the buyer's order history, that allows the sales rep to write the right order the right time every time. So it just speeds up the transactional part of order writing, not just for your rep, but for your customer too. You know, if your sales rep is saving your customer time because every time the rep visits them, it's not wasting their time, they appreciate it, and it's a part of keeping them happy. And Handshake has a lot of case studies when we've implemented our rep solution to our customers. This is what they tell us. It's a way to differentiate their sales rep experience in front of the customer. So finally, if you're able to give your sales reps time back in that precious and very expensive full service appointment, they should be using it for things like educating themselves better on the rest of your catalog and maybe helping the customer with merchandising. Maybe they can go see another account and sign up a new customer, or do other things that really adds a lot of value to your customers. So if they can act like a partner and not just a salesperson who shows up to scribble down an order, can really make a huge difference. So in a market, in many cases, that's very difficult to compete on product, especially in more commodity-like businesses. And when it's really, really difficult to compete on price, it's a huge differentiator when your reps can sell in a strategic way. And in many cases, it can help you avoid a race to the bottom on price. So next up, we have the value accounts. So as a reminder, these are the accounts that are placing smaller orders than those at the key accounts, but do so very frequently. So one of the things that I hear about our customers' value accounts is that because their order frequency is so high, their reps end up spending a lot of time with them, but for not enough yield or margin. And so that kind of takes us back to that point about making sure that you understand the profitability of each customer group when doing this exercise. And it's also why it's particularly important to make it possible for these accounts to serve themselves online. So according to Forrester, the primary objective for your value accounts is going to be pushing for cross-sell and upsell to drive up your order value. It's possible, of course, that your reps can upsell and cross-sell your accounts in person, but we all know that websites and technology are particularly good at showing related products. So let's get into some of the best ways to get more out of this customer segment. So first, these customers are placing orders at such a high volume that you want it to be something they can do in their sleep. You need to make the reorder process a no-brainer, really low friction, and at the very least, you want them to maintain their current ordering frequency and not lose them to a competitor who gives them a more seamless, a more frictionless ordering experience. And so it's very likely that the competitor who's going to do that is going to do that online. So not only are they going to take that business, but they're going to take it from you at a much better profit margin. So the best way to do that for your customers in this segment is to provide a super simple but powerful online ordering experience, including a way where they can take previous orders and look at their order history or use an order guide to really quickly and easily submit orders for their most frequently ordered products or for their favorites, and use that other time to discover new products. So more than probably any other category than we're going to cover today, these are the customers where mobile really matters the most for the reason that I just mentioned, which is about productivity. If your buyers are buying a lot of their products from you, and a lot of the times they're going to be doing it walking around the store or their stock room or their warehouse, it means that they're not doing their ordering from behind their desk. They're doing it shelf side while they're taking inventory. And so mobile ordering is really often done shelf side while buyers are taking inventory. And these are quick little replenishment orders that are going to come in many times a week. So, a quick note on this, if you're going to give your customers mobile ordering access, it has to be through a native mobile application. The buyer experience through a native app is so far superior to that of a mobile optimized website. And that's a whole discussion for another time. We've got a ton of resources on our website and lots of other content that we put together on this topic, but just wanted to mention that as an important consideration in thinking about mobile for this segment. So the final thing on these value accounts is that if there's anything that you can do to drive discoverability, which in turn, will increase their average order value, you should do it. Simply having online ordering in place often can do this. As an example, one of the companies that we work with is a company called Roland. They're a big music and professional audio company, and they sell into dealers. And one of their use cases for Handshake is that they have sales reps that go into in-person appointments with a dealer, and they really focus on the big ticket item, like an $8,000 piano. And what they saw happen was that once they introduced an online portal where their dealers could go online and place those reorders themselves, all of a sudden those same dealers were ordering items that the sales reps had never shown them. They were for less expensive products like headphone buds and guitar picks and cables, but at a high volume, meaning a lot of these value accounts started to add one or two of these things. It really started to make a difference for Roland. So I hear this all the time from lots of companies that there's really so much additional revenue that you can get just by making it easy for your customers to discover other products on their own time. And then there's a lot of other things that you can do in a more targeted way to drive that discoverability, like using a buyer's order history to make more specific product suggestions. So when you use a really optimized browsing experience that facilitates discovery, you can really automate it with email marketing and send a targeted communication about new or complementary products. So if you've bought this and you run a report on all of your customers that have bought that, send them an email suggesting, why don't you buy X or Y? And it just really helps to facilitate the process. So that's one of the reasons why Handshake has built out integrations with tools like MailChimp, making it really easy for our customers who use our solutions to leverage that data and send those targeted communications to their customers. So on to the third customer segment, the cyclical accounts. So these are the accounts that are placing really big orders, but not as frequently. So much more common and seasonal type of businesses, but in many non-seasonal businesses, you'll still see some of these customers come in maybe because they are a little bit smaller, but they place one big order on a kind of a lumpy curve because they want to take advantage of delivery promotion or some order value promotion that you might be running, right? So you'll see these accounts in person, usually at trade shows or in appointments to book preseason orders. But really, they need a self-serve mechanism to place orders in between those visits, which are often known as at-once orders. And we really recently started working with a knife manufacturer, Gerber, with this exact use case. They really wanted a mobile app in place to optimize their full service channel at trade shows, but put really e-commerce in place to capture orders in between that face-to-face time. So the soundbite on this one is stimulate this customer group with targeted offers. So what are some of the key tactics? So you really have to nail that in-person time you have with these buyers because there really isn't a lot of it. So the more strategic that your sales reps can be in these conversations, the more they can educate the buyer on your products, the more likely you're going to secure a bigger pre-book order and set up for a really great selling season. And the way to give your reps the time to do that is with a mobile order writing application. So if things sell through during the season, you want the buyer to be able to easily reorder. And so you need to have that online ordering portal in place. But what we see being almost more important for these cyclical accounts is around promotions. So we do a lot of work with the outdoor and sporting goods manufacturers and distributors, and we actually see this a lot in hardware too. They offer a lot of heavy incentives to secure larger pre-book orders, and sometimes offer fire sale pricing at the end of the season. And in order for them to support this promotional strategy, it's really important for them to have the technology in place that can support customer-specific promotional rules. And whatever you end up going with has to be able to support pre-book promo pricing for your reps, at-once buying discounts for your buyers, fire sale pricing, all of those things. So everything on one platform is really, really important. And just as one example of a customer that we work with that stimulates their customers with targeted orders that fall into this space is Milwaukee Tool. And we have a really great case study on the work that we've done with them on our website. And if you want a copy of it, just type it into the GoToMeeting chat box and we can send you a copy. But largely, they're running a lot of promotions at trade shows: buy X, get Y, buy $X, get X% off, and so on and so forth. And so they rarely get to see these customers at trade shows like the big seasonal fall and spring shows. And so every interaction that they have with that cyclical customer has to be impactful. And once they migrated their laptop ordering, their pen and paper ordering, to a mobile app that really made that process in front of the customer much more efficient, their average order size went up. They wrote a lot more orders faster. They talked to more customers, and they wrote those orders with fewer errors, and that really impacted their profitability in serving these customers. So it's really why having everything in one platform is so important. So the last customer segment are the dormant accounts. And customers can go dormant for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's due to your inability to service the region that they're in. Maybe, that's an open sales territory. Maybe the orders that they're placing are too small, and so you're not really able to profitably serve them with a sales channel. So then you don't have a rep in that territory on purpose. So you can probably guess where I'm going with this if you haven't seen it on the screen, is that the dormant accounts are really the most obvious fit for the self-service channel, specifically for online ordering. So dormant accounts should really be activated with low-cost promotions. But before we even talk about more promotions, online ordering can even just be a really great way to re-engage those accounts that have gone dark. We hear this from customers all the time. I heard an example of this with one of our sporting goods customers, Buff. On day one of their B2B e-commerce launch, they started seeing orders from customers that hadn't bought from them in more than 2 years. And what's really interesting about this story is that the other amazing thing was that the sales reps were saying they found this so fascinating because the sales reps had called those customers so many times over the years and weren't able to break through. And as soon as you got e-commerce in place, those customers came back. So it's really important that you consider who, even within your dormant accounts, might take advantage of this strategy, because maybe the customers that you put into this category today won't stay there long. And in fact, your goal should be to get them into a cyclical or value account as quickly as possible, because it's so expensive to acquire a new customer. So why not take advantage of those that you already have? So kind of going back to the promotion side, this group is a really good group to use a more, spray and pray technique where you just kind of blast them all over with email using really blanket promotions and just see who bites. This is very different from the customer specific promo strategy that you would take with much more cyclical accounts. But with your dormant accounts, it's not going to be worth your effort to really think about or overanalyze what specific discount or offer would appeal to them. To just keep emailing them and keep engaging them until they buy again. And Handshake has another really great case study with one of our customers called Child Smart, which if you type into the GoToWebinar box, and we can send you a copy of that too, of how they actually segmented out even within this one section, the dormant accounts, and activated their customers to use the channel and drive those dormant customers back into those other categories. So, okay. Let's talk a little bit about the mobile commerce opportunity. I've mentioned this a couple of times already. At Handshake, we're very passionate about this. This is at the core of what we do. But just to kind of put a finer point on it, of all of your customer segments, the mobile ordering opportunity is the most relevant for your key and for your value accounts. For your key accounts, you really want to offer a strong mobile ordering option to them, just in the event that your competitor comes out with one before you do. And so you want to really focus your ability to offer them mobile commerce as a way to retain that customer. And so one of these really interesting examples that I've seen in some of the work that I do with our customers is with a meat distributor that we work with. One of the reasons that they started to think about mobile ordering was because they had a key account where the key account manager said, my butchers are spending way too much time on the phone with this distributor's customer service team placing orders. If you don't make it easy for us, we're going to go somewhere else to another distributor that makes it easier, because my butchers have better things to do. And as soon as they started introducing mobile ordering, of course, their order writing time went down. Instead of spending an hour on the phone with customer service, those same butchers were spending 5 minutes on a mobile phone with Handshake placing their order. So it was a huge time saving, and they were able to retain the business. Huge win. But the story doesn't really end there. And what's really interesting and exciting is that after they introduced mobile ordering, what they found was that when they started this initiative, they had about 40% of the meat business at that one account. By the end of the year, they had 70% of that store's total meat business. And that 30% hike didn't come out of nowhere. It was business that was previously going to one of their competitors. And so just because this one company was able to make the same product available a little bit faster, a little bit easier, and these key accounts were ordering so frequently, mobile really made sense to them. And it just made it really a no-brainer to make it easier to serve their customers that way. So just being able to move the needle even a tiny bit with your key account base can make such a huge revenue impact that the investment sometimes in just even giving your most valuable customers iPhones or Android phones or whatever is going to be negligible. And in fact, one of our pet food distributors that we work with actually took this customer segmentation strategy and said, okay, we know who our key accounts are. We're actually going to give a small number of them iPads just to make it easier for them to order and make them feel valued and save them time when they're ordering. And then for some other key accounts, what they said is, let's take a bring your own device approach. And we're going to say, hey, customers, use your own device. We're going to give you login to our mobile app. Place orders from us. And so you can take even a hybrid approach to the hardware that supports the technology across your omni-channel strategy. One of the other really interesting things about that story with that pet food distributor that we work with is one of their main reasons for moving towards a mobile strategy was that they serve a lot of really small independent retailers. These are small business owners. They've got a lot of things on their plate. They do a lot. So if you can save them time, they really become really loyal customers. And they're also not behind their desk. And so they really needed something that the retailer could take around their store, their stock room, see what's empty on their shelf, tap, 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 place a reorder, and be done, and wait for that delivery the next day or the next week. So one of the reasons that they embarked on this strategy was because they started to notice that they had a large number of these small independent retailers that were ordering super small orders over the phone. And what they realized was that every single phone call that came into their customer service center was costing that distributor about $30 in profit margin for every single order. So now, going back to that toaster example that I gave before, if that order that the customer places, for one bag of dog food or whatever, and it's $35, it's not scalable. It's really difficult to profitably serve this very long tail of super small customers. And so they embarked on this initiative initially to really help them profitably serve smaller accounts, retain those customers, make them loyal, make them more profitable, and then roll it out more broadly to their key accounts, which do order much larger volumes more frequently and give them the same kind of benefit. So I've got a lot of examples like this that I can share, but why don't we move into the last part of the webinar, which is to take some Q&A. So I see a lot have come in, and that's fantastic. So give me one moment. I'm just going to read through the first one and make sure that we get to all of them. Okay, so the first one is actually one that came up a couple of times. Will this webinar be recorded? Yes, it has been. And so we will be happy to send you a copy of the slides as well as the recording of the webinar. Cool. A lot of the questions I'm seeing also are about the Milwaukee Tool case study, the Child Smart case study, and the Pet Food Experts case study. So I have your names and your emails, so we will have either myself or a member of our team reach out to you to send a copy of those that you can read at your leisure. And of course, if you're interested in any one of those solutions, we're happy to talk to you about it. Just to summarize, our Milwaukee Tool case study is about enabling your sales rep, your full service sales channel. The Child Smart case study is really about activating your dormant accounts and using a web ordering strategy to help you do that. And then the Pet Food Experts case study is about your hybrid approach in serving your smaller and your key accounts with a mobile strategy. So thanks for listening. We'll be happy to send those along. Is the mobile app only available on iPhone or also on Android? Okay, great question. Yep. So we have a number of end user applications. Handshake's sales rep application currently is available on iOS compatible devices. Handshake's platform on the web is compatible with any web browser, and Handshake's Direct Mobile, which is for customer ordering, is available for iOS, and we are very excited to very soon announce and release our Android application. But we can walk you through a demo of it if you're interested. So thanks for asking that question. The next question is the Handshake app for Rep the same as the B2B mobile app? Great question. And the answer to that is no, and for good reason. So Handshake really started as a mobile app for sales reps. Our CEO, Glenn Coates, does a lot of webinars, and he tells the story a lot better than I do, but really was born out of the need that sales reps need to be able to see all of their customers, all of the pricing across all of their customers. They need to see the full product catalog. They need to be able to do some quick, lightweight reporting. They need to be able to see a lot richer data than just what maybe a customer might need to see on their own. And so the reason that Handshake is so different is that our solution for sales reps is really built for sales reps. They need a whole set of solutions that, in many ways, when it comes down to the writing of the order, may look and feel pretty similar to the way that a customer might do it, but the way that you prepare the rep to be a strategic seller, consultative, maximize their time is a little bit different than how you enable a customer. And so our customer applications on iOS and Android are really purpose-built for the way that you want to enable your customers to buy. Great question. The next question is, please send copies of all 3 case studies. Great. Cool. Another question is, does Handshake integrate to NetSuite? Yes, we do, and we're happy to tell you a little bit about how that works and how we have customers implemented on it. We also have a number of case studies that highlight how we did it, but it's one that we do all the time. And are there any other questions? I think that actually wraps it up. If there's any others, feel free to type them out now. If not, we're going to wrap this up. Cool. So to wrap it up, here's our contact information. You can, you've already raised your hand to get additional resources, so we'll probably be in touch with you directly, but feel free to reach out to us, and the recording will be available in the next 24 hours or so, so keep an eye out for that. If you want to see a demo of our product, type in demo request, and we'd be happy to walk you through a live demonstration of all of the capabilities that we've talked about today. And thanks for joining us. You've asked some really great questions, and really hope this conversation has been fruitful for you, and have a really great day. Look forward to talking to you.